Her stories have changed so many times about what happens, when it happens, how it happens, with different versions. And each time she speaks, there's a different version.
Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, locked behind bars, and she just exposed everything about Ellen DeGeneres in her final jail call.
And that was like one of the most painful things that ever happened to me.
Rosie O'Donnell has been screaming about this for years. Nobody listened, but now the pieces are falling into place. And the person who tried to silence her? The same person Ghislaine just named.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
But here's what nobody is connecting. Rosie O'Donnell didn't just warn us about Ellen DeGeneres being fake. She was trying to tell us Ellen was involved in something far darker, something that ended lives, something Ghislaine Maxwell just confirmed from a prison cell. This is the story mainstream media refuses to touch. Once upon a time, Ellen DeGeneres and Rosie O'Donnell were close friends in Hollywood. Not acquaintances, not colleagues, friends, real friends, 30 years of friendship. Rosie knew Ellen before she was a global brand, before the talk show empire, before the be kind messaging that would eventually make her a billionaire. She watched Ellen transform from a regular person into someone completely different. Back in the day, Ellen DeGeneres and I were known as very close friends in Hollywood, but then something shifted. In 2007, Ellen appeared on Larry King Live. The topic turned to Rosie, and in front of a national audience, Ellen said something that would haunt Rosie for the next 20 years.
I don't know Rosie. We're not friends.
That's it, 3 sentences. 30 years of friendship erased on live television.
And that was like one of the most painful things that ever happened to me in show business in my life. I couldn't believe it.
Why did she say that?
I don't know, because I have photos of her holding my newborn babies. I knew her for 30 years. Like, I don't know Rosie, we're not friends. It was so upsetting to me that I had t-shirts made. I don't know Rosie, we're not friends. And I gave them out to my staff because it was very painful. And, you know, we've never sort of gotten over it.
But here's the thing that nobody understood at the time. Rosie wasn't just hurt by a betrayal. She was terrified. She knew why Ellen said it. She knew what Ellen was protecting. And from that moment forward, Rosie O'Donnell became one of the few people willing to speak openly about the real Ellen DeGeneres. For 19 years, Ellen DeGeneres built an empire on a single message: be kind. Every single episode of her talk show pushed this narrative: be kind to others, spread positivity, make the world a better place. It was the foundation of her entire brand. The Ellen Show became the most watched daytime talk show in America. She won 61 Daytime Emmy Awards. She made over $500 million, all while preaching kindness. But starting in 2021, something unexpected happened. Current and former employees started going public, and their stories painted a very different picture of what it was like behind closed doors.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
Thomas Scott was there from the very beginning. She was with Ellen in 2003 when the show first launched. She won 2 Daytime Emmys with that show, but she also witnessed something the cameras never showed.
We were told from the very beginning, don't talk to Ellen, don't do this, you can't, go into her office. It was very nerve-wracking, very stressful. We all walked on eggshells all the time.
Walked on eggshells. That's the phrase that kept coming up over and over. Former staff described an environment of fear, where Ellen wielded power through distance and silence. And when people broke the unspoken rules, there were consequences. One incident in particular stands out. It involved Ellen's executive producer, Ed Glavin.
We were in our production meetings, and she would watch Ed go off on people. Ellen would look at Ed, and she would laugh, because I was hoping she was going to say, Ed, you can't be yelling at crew this way. You can't be yelling at people this way. She laughed, and she said, every production needs their dog.
Meaning
Ed is her dog.
Like her attack dog.
Her attack dog. So therefore, she doesn't need to do that. He took the role of being the attack dog that she didn't have to now be the attack dog. So she didn't have to yell.
Do you understand what that means? Ellen deliberately used a subordinate as her weapon. When crew members or employees didn't comply, Ed Glavin would unleash. Ellen would laugh, and her hands stayed clean. This was a calculated system of control.
She's amazing as a host, but as a boss, and someone who's behind the scenes running the show, she's a different person. She's not the person people see in front of the camera.
Do you think anything will change?
No, because she should have apologized 16 years ago. This environment, this toxic culture that she created in the office has been going on for 16 years.
16 years? That's not a mistake. That's not one bad year. That's a culture, a deliberate, sustained system of emotional abuse that Ellen created and protected. But around the same time, these workplace allegations were exploding across news news networks, something else was happening in the shadows, something that would connect Ellen to one of the biggest criminal networks in modern history. Let's rewind to 2021. The same year the toxic workplace allegations dropped, the Department of Justice released thousands of documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein's criminal empire. Epstein had been arrested in 2019. He died in prison under suspicious circumstances. His co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, had been arrested and convicted. But when those documents were released, something caught people's attention. Ellen DeGeneres' name appeared in those files. Not as a victim, not as a witness. Her name was listed among hundreds of high-profile individuals connected to Epstein's network. Flight logs, communications, investigative materials, interview records. There she was, Rosie O'Donnell, who by this time had moved to Ireland out of fear of Donald Trump's retaliation, noticed something even more significant. While living abroad, Rosie posted a statement online alongside a photo of Jeffrey Epstein himself.
Well, there's the President of the United States that has it out for me and has for 20 years when I told the truth about him on a program called The View, where it was my job to talk about pop culture, politics, and I mentioned his bankruptcies, and I mentioned all of the sexual charges, and I mentioned that he was not, in fact, the businessman that everyone thinks he is because of the show The Apprentice, where they sold a bunch of lies to America for over 10 years, and half of America believed it. And so he was very angry, to say the least.
Yes.
And he hasn't let it go, and he sort of uses me as a punchline whenever he feels the need.
And that's when Rosie dropped a bombshell. By posting Epstein's image alongside her statement about finally being able to speak the truth, she was sending a message to everyone paying attention. There's something Ellen doesn't want revealed. Online communities began connecting dots. Old interviews between Ellen and celebrities resurfaced. People started analyzing the set design of Ellen's talk show against photographs of Epstein's private island, and the comparisons were eerie. When the Department of Justice released images of Epstein's island, conspiracy researchers immediately noticed something striking. On the island, there was a distinctive building structure often referred to as the temple. It had specific architectural features: blue and white color schemes, palm trees, tropical furnishings, very particular window designs. Then people looked at Ellen's talk show set.
Ellen DeGeneres' stage set is exactly the same as on Epstein Island, with all the couches, the same colour, the same soft furnishings, palm trees, window, everything to the T.
The similarities weren't subtle, they were exact. The same blue and white patterns, the same tropical aesthetic, the same architectural proportions. It wasn't coincidence, it was intentional. And it wasn't just the set. People started analyzing Ellen's home interiors in leaked videos and photographs. In one image, there was a painting visible behind her. When viewers looked up the artist and the specific piece, it was titled "Evil Thoughts with Revenge." Another painting appeared to have symbols written on it, symbols that looked eerily similar to the ones associated with Marina Abramovich, the performance artist known for her spirit cooking ceremonies involving blood and other bodily fluids. Those weren't decorations Ellen casually bought. Those were deliberate statements. Those were messages. And around the same time these connections were being made online, Rosie O'Donnell made another critical revelation. She explained that she had personally witnessed Ellen's true nature up close.
When did you know you needed to break things off with Ellen?
I think it was a slow roll when you come to understand the truth of another. I wanted desperately to have that relationship be the love of my life. That was my Cinderella story. What happened was that I was, through the circumstances, shut out from things that I cared about, and in order to make her feel that she was being loved, I would erase those things from my path, such as acting, and replace them with things that I thought would give her a foundation. As we got further and further away from me being able to be in public the way that would please, I began getting further and further away from my friends and my friendships. And one of the things that concerned me very much was that I was beginning to feel shut off and shut down and shut away.
Rosie was describing something specific here: isolation, control, the systematic removal of outside influences so that Ellen would be the only relationship that mattered. And when Rosie pushed back, Ellen cut her off completely. This was the same pattern that would later emerge with Anne Heche. Anne Heche dated Ellen DeGeneres in the late 1990s and early 2000s. It was a relationship that played a significant role in Ellen's public coming out story. But what happened after that relationship ended was something Rosie O'Donnell watched unfold in real time.
Heche gets in this accident, and I'm bereft. Now, how did I know her? She did my show twice, and she and Ellen came to my home in Miami and swam in my pool, and we had lunch once.
So
Right.
I knew her, not really well, but in the celebrity vernacular, and that she was with Ellen for a while, and then how her career suffered, and her book, Call Me Crazy. There was a horribly, horribly tragic child in that family, and I've always sort of felt sorry for her. So when she's dying, when that all happens, I'm legitimately bereft in a way that maybe surprised me. I'd wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, something's wrong. Oh, Anne Heche is in a coma. Like, it was obsessive to me. So she died tragically.
What Rosie witnessed was Anne Heche being systematically cut off from her career after her relationship with Ellen ended. Sound familiar? Same pattern as Rosie, same isolation, same destruction. But there's more to Anne's story. In 2022, just as Ellen's show was being shut down due to the workplace scandal, Anne Heche began giving interviews. And in those interviews, she started revealing what really happened between her and Ellen.
There's one question people want to know: what do I think about Ellen? And in fact, I haven't said that yet. I have not rambled on about her for one single moment. For 20 years, I have withheld my understanding. I have been canceled since the day I was born. I've been buried since the day I was born. Every single truth that I spoke, I was hit more, buried more, fucked more, or despised more, and then had calculated visions and circulations of systems that spun me up and out of the system that would in any way challenge the fact that she was not telling her own truth, but another's. Why do you think she tried to put me in an institution, folks? I called my mother. Guess what? 2 people who wanted more than anything to have my truth buried.
Anne was saying that Ellen had her institutionalized. Ellen had her blackballed from Hollywood. Ellen had spent 20 years trying to silence her. And just as Anne was finally finding her voice, just as she was preparing to speak openly about what Ellen did to her, something terrible happened. On May 26, 2022, Ellen DeGeneres announced that her talk show was ending. After 19 years and $500 million in earnings, she was stepping away. 5 months later, on December 13, 2022, Steven Twitch Boss, Ellen's longtime DJ and co-executive producer, was found dead in a motel room. He had checked in under his own name, switched his phone to airplane mode, and never left. A suicide note was found. Twitch's wife later revealed that the note referenced the pressure and burden he had felt from his time on Ellen's show. But here's what's crucial. Twitch wasn't just some random staff member. During the toxic workplace scandal, Ellen had relied on Twitch to publicly defend her. He went on camera. He vouched for her. He said everything backstage was fine. When the scandal exploded anyway, Twitch's credibility was destroyed. He had tied his name to Ellen's defense. And when that defense crumbled, so did his reputation.
TMZ is reporting when Twitch left his home the day before his suicide, he took an Uber to a motel about a mile away. At the motel, he switched his phone to airplane mode so no one could reach him. The motel manager says he checked in under his own name and never left his room.
Then, just 6 months later, Anne Heche died in a car crash. On August 5th, 2022, Anne was driving a Mini Cooper through a residential neighborhood in Los Angeles when her car suddenly accelerated, crashed through a garage, and burst into flames. She was pulled from the wreckage and hospitalized in a coma. The official story said she inhaled too much smoke. She died from smoke inhalation. But when people analyzed the aerial footage of the crash site, something didn't add up.
The coroner's report says that she was unconscious until her death, just from smoke inhalation and from being brain dead from the fumes in her brain. But if you look at the footage, she sits straight up, and that takes a conscious effort.
In the footage, Anne is clearly conscious. She's moving. She's trying to get out, but the coroner's report claims she was knocked unconscious immediately. The stories don't match. And the timing? Anne was actively giving interviews exposing Ellen. She was finally telling the truth. And then she was gone. Within months of each other, both Twitch and Anne, the 2 people closest to Ellen who had the most damaging information, were dead. This is where Ghislaine Maxwell enters the story. Ghislaine Maxwell is currently imprisoned for her role in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal conspiracy. She was convicted of recruiting underage girls for Epstein to abuse. She knew every detail of his operation. She knew his associates. She knew his network. And from inside prison, Maxwell has been making statements. In one of her interviews, she made a stunning claim. Ellen DeGeneres was part of Epstein's circle. Ellen's connection to Epstein and how she was allegedly recruiting child stars from Hollywood for his island is finally being exposed. Her stories have changed so many times about what happens, when it happens, and how it happens conversations with different versions. Each time she speaks, there's a different version. Maxwell was suggesting that Ellen had been involved in the recruitment of young Hollywood stars for Epstein's network. Think about what that means. Ellen had access to young talent, actors, musicians, child prodigies, kids who appeared on her show. Ellen was in a position to identify vulnerable young people and connect them to Epstein's circle, and Rosie O'Donnell had watched this happen. Rosie had seen Ellen transform from a regular person into someone connected to the elite Hollywood circles. Rosie had watched Ellen drift toward billionaires, private jets, exclusive parties, and private islands. As Ellen's daytime talk show became more successful, Ellen started spending time with billionaires, celebrities who flew on private jets, and people connected to exclusive parties and private islands. Ellen started drifting away from the regular people who knew her before fame changed everything. Rosie wasn't just making an observation. She was describing a specific shift. Ellen went from being a regular person with regular friends to being embedded in an elite network of powerful people connected to Epstein. Once the Epstein documents started being released, people online began making connections between Ellen's sudden distance from Rosie, Ellen's destruction of Anne Heche's career, and Ellen's reliance on Twitch to defend her during the scandal. It formed a pattern of silencing. When Rosie tried to stay connected to Ellen, Ellen cut her off publicly on live television. When Anne Heche tried to speak out about her relationship with Ellen, Ellen had her institutionalized and blackballed from Hollywood for 20 years. When Twitch tried to defend Ellen during the workplace scandal and the pressure became too much, he died under suspicious circumstances. And when the Epstein documents threatened to expose Ellen's involvement in a criminal network, she suddenly announced she was leaving America forever. Ellen DeGeneres and her wife Portia de Rossi have reportedly fled the US bound for the UK. Numerous publications are reporting the couple have left the United States permanently. There are also reports the couple have put their Montecito mansion on the market. Entertainment publication The Wrap has the exclusive story and said Ellen and Portia have moved to rural England and plan to never return to the United States, telling friends the election of Donald Trump was their primary motivation. But here's what's important: the timing. Ellen announced she was leaving the country just 3 months after the Department of Justice announced they would be releasing the full Epstein files to the public. She didn't wait to see what would be in those files. She didn't wait to see if her name would come up. She got out, and she took Portia de Rossi with her to a remote location in England where, according to local reports, wealthy celebrities moving into the quiet countryside weren't exactly welcomed. But before Ellen fled the country, researchers online began analyzing something else: the art on her walls and the symbols throughout her home. Ellen had been known as a serious art collector. She had pieces by Jean-Michel Basquiat, a famous street artist whose work often featured skull imagery and crown symbols. Ellen was often photographed wearing clothing and jewelry that displayed these same symbols. And interestingly, Jay-Z, another celebrity connected to Epstein's circle, was also frequently photographed wearing the same skull and crown imagery. These weren't random fashion choices. Among certain elites, these symbols carry specific meaning. They're associated with occult practices, ritualistic behavior, and esoteric knowledge circles that outsiders don't have access to. Researchers also noted that Ellen's home decor featured paintings and images that appeared to reference spirit cooking, a performance art practice associated with Marina Abramovich, who is known for rituals involving bodily fluids and has been connected to various conspiracy theories about elite occult practices. And remember the painting titled Evil Thoughts with Revenge? That was hanging in Ellen's home. These weren't accidents. These were deliberate choices. These were messages to people who would understand them. When the Department of Justice released Epstein's emails, researchers began analyzing the language used in his communications, and they found something disturbing: extensive use of code words. The most frequent code word was pizza. At first, people dismissed this as conspiracy theory. Pizza is just pizza, right? But when investigators looked at the context of these emails, the messages didn't make sense unless pizza meant something else entirely.
If you take a look at the recent emails released by the DOJ/FBI dealing with Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of people have been pointing out that there are hundreds of messages that reference pizza, and some of these messages just don't really make sense. For example, right here you can see in 2016 an email was sent to Epstein, subject the pizza monster. Jeffrey wrote, "She looks pregnant," and the person responded, "We don't know who that was. You mean radiating a soft glow with a look of bliss and excitement?"
The emails were clearly using coded language to discuss something that couldn't be discussed openly. And what's significant is that Ellen had famously talked about pizza obsessively on her talk show.
And so if I do, I don't want it to go to waste. Who will eat pizza if I... Jennifer? Yes? Harrison? Yes? Yes? Mark? All right. Too large? What do you think? I'm going to order some pizza.
Ellen wasn't just mentioning pizza casually. She was referencing it repeatedly, obsessively, in ways that aligned with the coded language being used in Epstein's emails. And then there's the claim about Ellen's connection to something far darker, one that emerged from analysis of Epstein's emails and conversations. The emails contain references to what some investigators believe was code for human consumption. Now, this is where the conspiracy gets extreme. And we need to be clear, much of what follows is based on speculative interpretation of emails and conspiracy theories that have spread online, but the pattern is worth examining. There's been speculation that Hollywood was involved in the consumption of human flesh, and the emails sent by Epstein and his co-conspirators prove this. There are now rumors that Ellen was involved in this too. Whether or not these extreme claims are true, what's indisputable is that Ellen DeGeneres' name appears in Epstein's document. She was connected to his circle, and when the full scope of that connection threatened to become public, she ran. Before Ellen fled to England, she engaged in what looked like panic selling. She began liquidating her art collection, expensive sculptures worth millions of dollars, pieces by Jean-Michel Basquiat that she'd collected over years. All of it suddenly went on the market. Then her property started selling. One of her massive California estates sold for nearly $100 million. Other homes connected to her and Portia also went up for sale around the same time. Online observers noted that the speed and pattern of these sales didn't look like normal celebrity business decisions. It looked like someone trying to convert assets to cash quickly before something happened. It looked like running.